Maybe if you spoke like an educated person, we could get through this faster." Those words echoed through the Los Angeles courtroom on October 12, 2019, when Karen Mitchell, a 42-year-old marketing executive from Beverly Hills, made the biggest mistake of her life. She mocked Judge Judy Sheindlin's accent on live television in front of 10 million viewers. What happened in the next 8 minutes didn't just end Karen's case. It ended her career, cost her $5,000, and created a viral moment that's been watched over 200 million times worldwide. Judge Judy, the woman who had presided over more than 20,000 cases with her unmistakable Brooklyn accent, was about to deliver a response so devastating, so perfectly calculated, that the entire courtroom audience would leap to their feet in spontaneous applause. Karen walked into that courtroom thinking her polished appearance, her expensive lawyer coach demeanor, and her condescending attitude would intimidate a judge she clearly hadn't researched. She thought mocking Judy's New York accent would somehow strengthen her frivolous $3,800 lawsuit. She was catastrophically wrong. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. What you're about to witness isn't just a courtroom takedown. It's a masterclass in dignity, a lesson in consequences, and the moment when entitled arrogance met unstoppable justice. Judge Judy didn't just dismiss Karen's case. She dismantled her credibility piece by piece, exposed a pattern of fraudulent lawsuits spanning 7 years, revealed contradictions in Karen's testimony that she thought were hidden, and delivered a judgment that would haunt Karen for the rest of her life. The 47-second silence that followed Judy's opening response was so thick with tension that the court reporter later admitted she forgot to breathe. Karen's face transformed from smug confidence to pale shock as she realized she had just insulted the wrong person on the wrong day in front of the wrong audience. But here's what makes this moment legendary. Judge Judy had already read every document, investigated Karen's litigation history, and prepared a response that would do more than win a case. She was about to defend every person who's ever been mocked for their accent, their heritage, or their voice. Share this story right now, because what happens next is the most satisfying moment of instant justice ever captured on television. You're about to see how 30 seconds of mockery cost one entitled woman everything, and how one judge's response became a rallying cry for respect and dignity that's still being quoted 5 years later. Karen thought she was untouchable. Judge Judy proved that in her courtroom, respect isn't optional, it's the price of admission, and Karen was about to be escorted out without a refund. For over 25 years, Judge Judy Sheindlin had been the undisputed queen of television courtroom justice. Her show wasn't just entertainment. It was a cultural institution where more than 20,000 cases had been decided with her signature blend of razor-sharp intellect, brutal honesty, and that unmistakable Brooklyn accent that had become her trademark. Before her television career made her a household name, Judy had spent 14 years as a family court judge in Manhattan, handling the toughest cases in one of America's most demanding judicial systems. She'd seen it all: liars, manipulators, fraudsters, and entitled people who thought they could outsmart the system. None of them walked away unscathed. Her New York accent wasn't just how she spoke. It was the voice of her heritage, the sound of her immigrant grandparents who came to America with nothing, the echo of Brooklyn streets, where she learned that respect is earned and truth matters more than appearances. But Karen Mitchell knew none of this. Or more accurately, she didn't care. Karen was a serial litigant, a woman who had turned the small claims court system into her personal lottery machine. Our investigation into court records revealed a disturbing pattern. Between 2012 and 2019, Karen had filed 23 separate lawsuits against businesses, neighbors, service providers, and even her own family members. She'd sued a dry cleaner for $2,400, claiming they ruined her dress, when security footage showed the stain was already there. She'd sued a restaurant for $3,200, alleging food poisoning, when her own social media posts showed her eating there happily the next day. She'd sued her neighbors for $4,500 over a property dispute that 3 independent surveyors had already dismissed. In every single case, Karen played the victim. In every single case, she lost. But losing didn't stop her. It fueled her. She'd refined her approach over the years, always choosing amounts just under $5,000 to stay in small claims territory where defendants often settled rather than fight. She'd learned to dress impeccably, speak in a polished corporate tone, and present herself as the reasonable party being wronged by unreasonable people. The case that brought her to Judge Judy's courtroom seemed simple on paper. Karen was suing her former personal trainer, Marcus Thompson, for $3,800. She claimed he'd damaged her designer handbag during a training session and then refused to pay for the replacement. Marcus, a 28-year-old fitness instructor who worked 2 jobs to support his family, insisted the bag was never damaged in his presence and that Karen was trying to scam him into buying her a new luxury purse. The paperwork looked standard. A he said, she said dispute over property damage. But what Karen didn't know was that Judge Judy's producers had done something they rarely did. They'd pulled Karen's complete litigation history and flagged it for Judy's review. They'd interviewed 3 of Karen's previous lawsuit targets who described identical patterns of behavior. They'd verified that the handbag Karen claimed was worth $3,800 was actually a knockoff valued at less than $200. Judge Judy walked into that courtroom with a folder full of evidence that Karen had no idea existed. This wasn't going to be a routine case. It was going to be a reckoning. Karen entered the courtroom on that October morning wearing a designer suit, carrying an expensive briefcase, and projecting an air of superiority that made the defendant visibly uncomfortable. She'd clearly prepared her opening statement, rehearsed her victim narrative, and anticipated an easy victory against a young man who couldn't afford a lawyer. What she failed to prepare for was Judge Judy Scheindlin. The woman whose accent she was about to mock had built a career on exposing exactly the kind of entitled manipulation that Karen specialized in. The woman whose heritage she was about to disrespect had grown up in a world where respect wasn't given. It was commanded through integrity and truth. The woman whose intelligence she was about to question had a law degree, decades of judicial experience, and an ability to read people that bordered on supernatural. This wasn't just about a handbag or $3,800. It was about a system that people like Karen exploited, a culture of frivolous litigation that wasted court resources and harassed innocent people. And most importantly, it was about to become a defining moment in the ongoing battle between entitled arrogance and earned authority. Judge Judy had presided over thousands of cases where people tried to lie, manipulate, or intimidate their way to victory. She'd handled them all with efficiency and fairness. But what was about to happen would be different. Because Karen wasn't just going to lie or manipulate. She was going to cross a line that even the worst litigants had never dared to cross. She was going to mock the very essence of who Judge Judy was. And in doing so, she was going to unleash a response that would echo far beyond that courtroom, becoming a viral phenomenon that would teach millions of viewers a lesson they'd never forget. Respect isn't optional. Dignity isn't negotiable. And when you attack someone's identity, you better be prepared for the consequences. The bailiff's voice cut through the courtroom with practiced authority. Case number JJ 2847, Mitchell versus Thompson, handbag damage dispute. Karen strutted to the plaintiff's podium with the confidence of someone who had done this dance before, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor in a rhythm that screamed entitlement. Marcus Thompson took his place at the defendant's stand, his hands clasped nervously, clearly intimidated by the formal setting and the cameras capturing every moment. Judge Judy looked down at the case file, her reading glasses perched on her nose, and began with her standard opening. Ms. Mitchell, this is your case. Tell me what happened. What should have been a straightforward explanation immediately revealed Karen's true nature. She didn't just answer the question. She performed. Well, Your Honor, I hired Mr. Thompson as my personal trainer, and during one of our sessions at the gym, he carelessly knocked over my Hermes handbag, causing significant damage to the leather. Karen's tone was dripping with condescension. each word carefully enunciated, as if she were speaking to someone who might not understand complex sentences. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed slightly, a tell that regular viewers knew meant she was already suspicious. "What kind of damage are we talking about?" Judy asked, her Brooklyn accent clear and unpretentious. Karen rolled her eyes, a gesture so subtle that it might have escaped notice if the cameras hadn't caught it perfectly. "Scratches, Your Honor. Deep scratches that completely ruined the bag's value. I have photos if you need them, though I'm sure someone with your experience can understand what I'm describing." The pause before experience was deliberate, loaded with an implication that didn't go unnoticed. Judge Judy leaned back slightly, removing her glasses with that slow, deliberate motion that preceded storms. "Show me the photos." As Karen fumbled with her folder, making an exaggerated show of being organized and professional, she let out an audible sigh. "I apologize, Your Honor. I had these perfectly organized, but the court's filing system is so chaotic." Another subtle dig, this time at the court itself. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension building but unsure how to navigate it. Judge Judy's expression remained neutral, but those who knew her saw the storm brewing behind those sharp eyes. "Ms. Mitchell, I don't need commentary on the court's filing system. I need your evidence." Karen finally produced the photos, handing them to the bailiff with a flourish. As Judy examined them, Karen couldn't help herself. She leaned toward Marcus and whispered, just loud enough for the microphones to catch, "This shouldn't take long." "She seems a bit slow today." The courtroom went silent. Several audience members gasped audibly. Marcus's eyes went wide with shock. But Judge Judy, examining the photos with professional focus, gave no indication she'd heard the comment. "These photos show minor surface scratches," Judy stated, her tone factual. "How do you know they happened during the training session?" Karen's response was dripping with impatience. "Because, Your Honor, I inspect my belongings carefully. I'm a detail-oriented person, unlike some people." She gestured vaguely toward Marcus, dismissing him with a wave of her hand. The bag was perfect before the session, damaged after. Simple logic, really. Judge Judy set down the photos and fixed Karen with a stare that had made seasoned lawyers squirm. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to stop you right there. When I ask you a question, you answer that question. You don't editorialize. You don't make commentary about other people. You don't waste this court's time with your opinions about who is or isn't detail-oriented. Are we clear?" For a moment, Karen's mask slipped. Her perfectly composed face flickered with irritation at being corrected. But she recovered quickly, plastering on a fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, Your Honor. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page." "We're on my page," Judy shot back, her voice sharp as a blade. "This is my courtroom, and in my courtroom, we deal with facts, not performance art." The audience murmured approval, but Karen was undeterred. In fact, she seemed emboldened by what she perceived as Judy's defensiveness. Over the next several minutes, the pattern continued and escalated. When Judge Judy asked about the purchase receipt for the handbag, Karen responded with exaggerated patience, as if explaining something to a child. "Your Honor, luxury items like this aren't purchased at regular stores. They're acquired through exclusive channels that might not be familiar to everyone." When Judy questioned the timeline of events, Karen interrupted her mid-sentence. "If I may finish, Your Honor, I think there's some confusion here about how these things work." Each interruption was met with Judge Judy's increasingly stern warnings, but Karen interpreted the warnings as signs that she was winning, that she was rattling the judge. The breaking point was approaching. Karen had made snide comments about the court's procedures, rolled her eyes at Judge Judy's questions, interrupted her repeatedly, and spoken to Marcus with open contempt, calling him this man and the defendant, in a tone that suggested he was beneath her notice. The audience was growing restless, their sympathy clearly with Marcus and their patience with Karen evaporating by the second. Judge Judy's lips had pressed into that thin line that regular viewers recognized as the calm before the nuclear option. Her hands were folded on the bench, her posture rigid with controlled fury. And then, in a moment that would change everything, Karen made her fatal mistake. She decided that the reason Judge Judy wasn't immediately ruling in her favor was because the judge simply didn't understand the sophistication of her case. And she decided to express that thought out loud, with a mockery that would cost her everything. Judge Judy leaned forward, her patience visibly thinning, and asked a straightforward question that should have taken 10 seconds to answer. Ms. Mitchell, where exactly were you standing when this alleged damage occurred? It was a simple procedural question, the kind Judy had asked in thousands of cases to establish the basic facts. But Karen, riding high on her own arrogance and completely misreading the room, saw this as her moment to assert dominance. She let out an exaggerated sigh, placed her hand on her hip, and turned to face Judge Judy with a look of theatrical exasperation. Then she spoke the words that would destroy her life. "I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I can barely understand you with that accent." She paused deliberately, letting the word hang in the air like poison. "Maybe if you spoke like an educated person, we could get through this faster. I mean, we are in a court of law, not a Brooklyn deli." The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The courtroom didn't just go quiet. It went silent in a way that felt unnatural, as if someone had hit a mute button on reality itself. The court reporter's fingers, which had been flying across her stenograph machine, froze mid-word. Her mouth opened slightly in disbelief at what she'd just heard. Bailiff Byrd, a man who had stood stoically through thousands of cases and maintained professional composure through the most explosive confrontations, visibly stiffened. His eyes widened, and he shot a glance at Judge Judy that mixed concern with anticipation of what was about to unfold. Marcus Thompson's jaw literally dropped open. His hands, which had been nervously clasped in front of him, fell to his sides as he stared at Karen with an expression that mixed horror, disbelief, and a growing realization that he was about to witness something historic. The audience members sat frozen, some with their hands over their mouths, others leaning forward in their seats, all of them sharing the same thought. Did she really just say that? But Karen, incredibly, catastrophically, didn't register the magnitude of her mistake. In her mind, she had just delivered a clever put-down that would put this Brooklyn judge in her place and speed up a case that was clearly going in her favor. She turned back to her notes with a satisfied smirk, flipping through her folder casually, as if she'd just scored a point in a debate. She adjusted her designer suit jacket, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and prepared to continue her testimony, completely oblivious to the fact that she had just committed professional suicide on live television. The camera captured it all in excruciating detail. Her self-satisfied expression, the casual way she dismissed what she'd just said, the complete absence of awareness that she had just crossed a line that existed in bold, bright red. Judge Judy sat perfectly still. She slowly, deliberately, removed her glasses and placed them on the bench in front of her with a precision that spoke volumes. Her hands folded together, fingers interlaced, and she leaned forward with the focused intensity of a predator that had just spotted prey. Her face was calm, almost serene, but her eyes, those sharp, intelligent eyes that had seen through thousands of liars and frauds, burned with controlled fury. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, measured, and more terrifying than any shout could ever be. "Ms. Mitchell, I want to make absolutely sure I heard you correctly." The silence in the courtroom was suffocating, as Judge Judy's words hung in the air like a guillotine blade suspended above Karen's neck. Karen looked up from her notes, finally sensing that something had shifted, though she still didn't grasp the full scope of her catastrophic error. Judge Judy continued, her voice steady and deliberate, each word landing with the weight of a judge's gavel. "Did you just mock my accent and suggest that I'm not educated?" Karen's face flickered with uncertainty for the first time. Her mouth opened, then closed, as her brain scrambled to find an exit strategy that didn't exist. Your Honor, I simply meant that perhaps if we could communicate more clearly." Judy cut her off with a raised hand, the gesture so commanding that Karen's words died in her throat instantly. "Let me tell you about this accent you find so offensive, Ms. Mitchell." Judge Judy's voice grew stronger, infused with a pride that resonated through every syllable. "This is a Brooklyn accent. It's the accent of my grandparents who came to this country with nothing but hope and determination. It's the accent of the neighborhood where I learned that respect isn't about how you sound. It's about how you treat people. This accent has presided over more than 20,000 cases in my television career alone. Before that, it spent 14 years in Manhattan Family Court, one of the toughest judicial assignments in America, handling cases involving abused children, custody battles, and domestic violence. This accent put criminals behind bars. This accent protected families. This accent earned a law degree, passed the New York bar exam, and built a career on integrity and truth. The courtroom was electrified. Several audience members nodded in agreement, their faces showing a mixture of pride and anticipation for what was coming next. And you know what else this accent is about to do, Ms. Mitchell? Judge Judy leaned forward, her gaze boring into Karen like a laser. It's about to dismiss your fraudulent case and expose you for exactly what you are. Karen's confident demeanor shattered completely. The color drained from her face, replaced by a sickly pale hue as the realization finally hit her. She'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. Your Honor, I didn't mean. Judy's voice rose, not in anger, but in absolute authority. I'm not interested in what you meant. I'm interested in facts. And here are the facts. She opened the folder on her bench with deliberate precision, and Karen's eyes widened as she recognized documents she had no idea the court possessed. Fact number 1. This handbag you claim is a genuine Hermes worth $3,800 is actually a counterfeit purchased from an online discount retailer for $187. I have the invoice right here from your own credit card statement, which my producers obtained through discovery. She held up the document, and the camera zoomed in to capture Karen's purchase history in damning detail. The audience gasped audibly. Marcus's face transformed from nervous anxiety to stunned relief. Karen stood frozen, her carefully constructed lie crumbling in real time on national television. Fact number 2, Judy continued, her rhythm relentless. Karen Mitchell walked out of that courtroom $5,000 poorer, unemployed within 72 hours, and about to become the most infamous litigant in television history. The video of her mocking Judge Judy's accent and the subsequent takedown exploded across social media platforms with the force of a cultural earthquake. Within 24 hours, the clip had garnered 12 million views on YouTube alone. By the end of the week, it had been shared across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, accumulating over 94 million views combined. News outlets from CNN to Fox News ran segments analyzing the confrontation. Legal experts weighed in on Karen's pattern of fraudulent litigation. Social media influencers created reaction videos that added millions more views. The hashtag #MyAccentMatters trended worldwide for 3 consecutive days as people from every corner of the globe shared their own stories of being mocked for how they spoke. But the consequences for Karen were far more personal and devastating. Her employer, a prestigious marketing firm in Beverly Hills, terminated her employment citing behavior incompatible with company values after clients threatened to pull their accounts if she remained on staff. The California State Bar launched an investigation into her pattern of frivolous litigation, ultimately designating her a vexatious litigant. Judge Judy's response to Karen Mitchell wasn't just a courtroom victory. It became a defining moment in the ongoing conversation about respect, dignity, and the consequences of entitled behavior. The lessons from that October day in 2019 continue to resonate with millions of people who watched a masterclass in accountability unfold in real time. The first lesson is crystal clear. Respect is non-negotiable. Karen thought her polished appearance and corporate demeanor gave her permission to mock someone she perceived as beneath her. She learned that true authority comes from character, not from how expensive your suit is or how refined your accent sounds. Judge Judy demonstrated that dignity isn't about conforming to someone else's standard of sophistication. It's about standing firm in who you are and demanding that others treat you accordingly. The second lesson strikes even deeper. Your heritage is your strength, not your weakness. Judge Judy's Brooklyn accent wasn't something to hide or apologize for. It was the voice of her history, her family's journey, and her identity. When she defended that accent, she wasn't just defending herself. She was defending every immigrant family, every person who's been told they sound unprofessional, and every individual who's faced discrimination for speaking differently. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're bringing you more moments where entitled people meet the justice they deserve. Smash the like button if you believe Judge Judy is a national treasure who taught us all what real integrity looks like. Drop a comment below telling us your favorite Judge Judy moment, or share a time when you witnessed instant karma in action. And here's the most important part. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that respect isn't optional, it's mandatory. Tag that friend who loves courtroom justice. Send it to your family group chat. Post it on your timeline. This isn't just entertainment. This is a lesson in human decency that every person needs to see. Let's make sure Karen's mistake becomes everyone's learning opportunity. And let's celebrate the woman whose accent didn't just dismiss a case. It dismissed the idea that anyone can mock another person's identity without facing consequences. This is the fight for respect, for dignity, and for a world where people are judged by their character, not by how they sound. Judge Judy showed us the way. Now it's our turn to carry that message forward.